All the shots of What's up, hackers? Welcome to Saturday Hacker Day. My name is Taggart, and as always on Saturdays, we're going to be doing some blue team work today. But before we get going with that, we're going to start with this week in cyber news. Some pretty exciting stuff going on, not so much on the technical side, a little bit, but some more global news. We have a pretty interesting update here from the United States Department of State, who are offering a $10 million reward for the operators of the dark side ransomware. Now, there's a little bit more to this story than the headline would necessarily provide for you. So, the Department of State has announced a reward of up to 10 million for information leading to the identification or location of anyone holding a key leadership position in the dark side ransomware group. This is according to the Dark Reading story. But of course, the State Department actually just has their own announcement that they have released regarding this. This is a really interesting development. This is the first time I've ever been aware of the Department of State, like very specific, the State Department specifically asking for information like this. It's not the Department of Justice, right? It's not the Department of Defense or anything else like that. It's not Interpol. It's the Department of State. Yeah, White Cyberdeck, exactly my question. Why the State Department placing the bounty? Wouldn't it be more appropriate like the FBI? The only reason that I can think is because the State Department handles things like sanctions against other nations. And we know that the State Department was also behind the sanctions against cryptocurrency exchanges that were known to be working with ransomware operators, right? So any businesses in the United States that were working with those known exchanges that facilitated ransomware were going to get fined. So, and that was a function of the State Department. So I'm not entirely certain why it's the State Department, but you're right. It is pretty odd that it is. So not only is there a $10 million bounty for information, a reward, I should say, for information for the leaders, but there's an additional $5 million bounty for information leading to the arrest and or conviction in any country of any person, quote, conspiring to participate in or attempting to participate in a dark side variant ransomware incident. And what's wild about that statement is dark side ransomware variants. So even if someone were to take the dark side samples, right, and repurpose them, or take that source and repurpose it, and now they're using it even if they're not part of the dark side group originally, that could technically fall under that category. So it's open season on ransomware operators. Dark side has kind of gone under after the Colonial Pipeline incident. At least they've gone underground, and they're definitely not operating at the cadence that they were before. I'm crossing my fingers personally that the next one of these is going after Conti, because they have been brazen in not only their attempts to defy law enforcement activities, both of the United States and other sovereign nations, but they attack hospitals. Like they're the worst of the worst. And so once again, I would very much like to see Conti go under. Loser goes to jail. The rest gets $2 million each. All right, so that's it on the bounties for dark side operators. Totally changing gears here just for a second. Some pretty interesting updates are coming to Microsoft Defender. Now, Defender is a collection of products, right? And we have Microsoft Defender, which is what goes on the desktop version and actually on the server version of the Windows operating system. Then you have Defender for Endpoint, which is sort of a managed service, right? And then you have Defender Advanced Threat Protection, which I actually think is changing its name now as well, which is sort of the Azure managed SIM side of this thing that goes into Azure Sentinel, which is also changing its name to Microsoft Security Center. They can't keep their name straight, and certainly I can't either. But the important takeaway for this update to kind of the vanilla Microsoft Defender or Windows Defender, no, it's called Microsoft Defender for Windows, is that it's going to be manageable. It's not just going to be a kind of set it and forget it, you turn it on, you turn it off sort of situation. You're actually, even as an individual user, going to be able to manage your devices. And when I say your devices, I don't just mean Windows devices. Defender is going to be manageable for anything tied to your Microsoft account. That will include iOS and Android devices that you have connected, as well as any, like if you have a Surface tablet or something else like that, that'll be manageable as well. Pretty cool update. I'm really interested to see what this is going to do. Now, that was on sort of the personal side, and this, of course, is coming for Windows 11. On the business side, we also saw another announcement that Microsoft Defender for Business is going to get a bit of an update as well. In fact, that doesn't exist yet, but it's going to. Now, what this is going to mean is that Defender for Business is intended for businesses of up to 300 employees. And what it will provide is some, if not all, of the protections made available to enterprise customers with Defender for Endpoint and Advanced Threat Protection, right, managed in that Azure portal at a smaller scale and certainly at a more comfortable price point. The security offerings, those enterprise security offerings, are crazy expensive. They are designed, right, for enterprise customers with really deep pockets and the ability to spend what needs to be spent on security. But for small and medium sized businesses, this is often a major cost center that isn't something that is top of mind, right? If you're not an active target or you don't think you're an active target, you may not be spending that money. You may not be budgeting what is necessary for security. But Windows or Microsoft recognizes that this is a threat not only to their reputation, but to their customers. And so, and I'm not trying to like puff up Microsoft, really. I have a lot of beefs with them. But I do think that it is ultimately a net good that they are offering their security products at a more reasonable price point to smaller customers. So look for both new Microsoft Defender for Windows for personal and also for business use updates coming to a Windows 11 machine near you. I have not yet updated to Windows 11. I haven't gotten that little pushy notification yet on my machine, and I'm kind of dreading it because I've heard some not so great things about how Hyper-V works under Windows 11. But hey, when it happens, I guess it'll be content for the stream. Okay, that's gonna do it for the news. And then I just wanted to take a quick second with the less than bully pulpit that I have here to talk a little bit about the kind of the ongoing conversation we saw this week in the Twitter sphere and elsewhere about programming in InfoSec. So if you haven't been following this dumb drama that people decided to start on the interwebs this week, basically, some folks were trying to make the point that essentially every role, including leadership roles in information security, require fairly deep experience with computer programming. And then people actually in those roles saying, no, it doesn't. You can be successful other ways. And some of it felt like gatekeeping. Some of it felt like people being overly literal with job descriptions and what's entailed, and especially harping on what a job description literally says versus what the lived experience of doing a specific job actually means. And let me just put it out there here. If you want to learn programming, I think that's great. Obviously, I'm a big believer in the value of knowing how to code. I really am. But I also understand that it's not for everybody. And I also understand that it is true that not every role in security requires understanding of computer programming. Now, maybe a broad understanding of what goes into, the development process, or perhaps that code is compiled, some of the bigger parts of the story. But it is certainly the case that not every role, and perhaps especially leadership roles, do not require you to be able to look at, write, or read lines of code. To suggest otherwise is a deep misunderstanding of the responsibilities in those roles and a misunderstanding of the other skills that people have spent time to develop and build into their successful careers. So it is often the case that two things tend to happen in not just security. I don't think it's endemic to security, but or unique to security. But two things tend to happen. One, super technical people who have hard won their skills tend to feel that other people should go through the same pipeline that they have. They want to live in a world where everyone understands them and they understand everyone. That's not how the world works, and it's really not how the world is supposed to work. Um, that's part one. And part two is, if you are deep in the technicals of security or anything in technology, I think it's really easy to believe that you have to understand those things to make an impact. That you that's what it is at the end of the day. Like, everything's code, so why shouldn't everyone understand what I'm doing? But it's not. It's not. Security isn't about code. It's about people. And while you are building products, while you are building software and working to secure it with technological solutions, at the end of the day, the people using it are your actual customers, and the people that you are leading or the people that you are protecting. That's what it's actually about. And you can have roles in security that deal at that human level, that layer 8, right on the OSI model, rather than deep into the code or the technicals of what's actually going on the machine. So I just want to put that out there, that look, are there roles that require programming in information security? Of course, it's an axiom, right? Technical jobs require technical skills. Are there roles, including leadership roles, that do not require that experience? Absolutely, yes. And to suggest otherwise is just a deep misunderstanding of either lived experience of those roles or the diversity that is important to a successful security architecture and to a successful organization in general. All right, soapbox over. We're going to get into the main material for today, which is, I think it's going to be an interesting split between the human level and the technical level of what we do, and that is vulnerability management. Now, when we talk about vulnerability management, there's a cycle, right, that goes to it. It's not a one and done thing. We're talking about, you're in an organization, you are responsible for the ongoing security of multiple devices. You're talking about asset management. You're talking about making sure that fleets of servers, workstations, mobile devices, Internet of Things devices, whatever they are actually maintained, and that when vulnerabilities are disclosed, that the updates are applied to those systems. It is not sexy. It's not. Right? It's routine work, but it is this routine work that actually keeps an organization secure, because keeping your systems up to date, right? We always say it, patch your stuff. If attackers are going after unpatched systems, remove the unpatched systems by patching them. And so first we have to discover what is unpatched, or what has vulnerabilities that are potentially exploitable, and that's what vulnerability management is all about, at least in the first step. Dust on Keyboard, welcome. In addition, once we discover the vulnerabilities, we have to report them meaningfully, which is trickier than it sounds. And then we have to work with if we are not ourselves the owners of the asset, the ones responsible for actually getting, hands on keyboard and patching, or using our management tools to patch, then we have to work with people to actually make it happen. B7H30, thank you so much for the raid. Hope your stream went well, and very welcome to all of those viewers. We have a comment from YouTube about the programming. I don't think it should be required, but not knowing how to script is making my job a lot harder and slower. Yeah, some jobs that's true. The whole point is not all. Everybody thinks that their experience is universal. No experience is universal. Okay, so back on vulnerability management. The process we're going to begin with today is learning how to scan for vulnerabilities and how to schedule those things. And then we'll talk a little bit about reporting, how that goes. And I know that we have some expertise on that here in chat, so feel free to comment as we go. But let's get started, and we're going to start by using a try hack me room that is based on OpenVAS. Listen, shivers at reporting bolts. Yeah, so there are ways to do it that are, less painful. But let's get going here. Let's first of all get some Get some background tunes going. Yeah. Better? Okay. And we're going to use this open vase room, but I'm going to do some stuff that isn't directly about this. We're going to use the open vase room as a starting point. And OpenVAS is an open source vulnerability scanner. And perfect segue, so thank you so much. So there are other vulnerability scanners that you may encounter in this realm if you work in vulnerability management, if you work on the blue team. One of them, which I use actually every day, is Rapid7's Nexpose. So Rapid7 is the group that now maintains Metasploit, as a matter of fact, from a red team perspective. But they also have a really nice vulnerability scanner and management tool in Nexpose, and then their cloud solution, Insight VM. Really, really cool architecture. I like working with Nexpose, honestly. It's not perfect. None of them are. But I really like working with it, and its reporting capabilities are pretty interesting. So this is one that you might want to check out. Unfortunately, I don't think it has a free trial, which is kind of a bummer. If I'm wrong about that, that's cool. Let me know. And it does integrate. This is kind of cool. It does integrate with Metasploit as well. So if you want to go deeper on your scan, it will allow you to attempt to actually automate some potential offensive tests to see if the vulnerability is legitimate. Another one that Lasso has mentioned is Nessus from Tenable. And what's cool about Nessus, other than it is a really nice vulnerability management tool, is that it does have a free trial. So if you want to learn how to use Nessus on your own, or you want to start a less than reputable penetration testing tool firm and just run Nessus scans against stuff, you can do that. Don't do that. There are some, I would say, less, not charlatans, but less valuable than they're charging organizations that will basically just give you the report from one of these tools and go on their merry way. That is not good, penetration testing, certainly, and vulnerability management and pen testing are two different things, even if both of them scan for vulnerabilities. Oh, hey, Lasso's got us hooked up with the Nexpose trial. There is a free trial for Nexpose. That's cool. So if you want to check that out, definitely do that. And then, of course, the last one that we're talking about is the one we're going to be using today. Vulnerability assessment is very different to vulnerability management. That's absolutely the case, right? I would say that vulnerability assessment is within a process of vulnerability management, right? Vulnerability management is sort of a larger process. Assessment of which assessment is only one phase, right? Or a one-off assessment. And even these are, by the way, different from a risk assessment. And that's actually something that if you're going for your Sec Plus or your CISSP or something like that, these terms really do have different meanings. And assessing risk and assessing vulnerabilities are two totally different processes, and in a mature security organization will be handled by different teams, right? A risk assessor is different than a blue teamer or a vulnerability assessor, or however you want to describe that, or a security analyst even. Those are two very different roles. Okay, and of course the tool that we're going to use right now is OpenVAS from Greenbone. And this one is open source, and you can install it straight in Kali if you want to, or anywhere else. However, we are going to use it in Docker today. Why? Because it is kind of a pain to set up, and there's a lot. It has its own database, as it should. There's like a lot of moving parts, and so using the containerized version of it I find to be a little bit easier, and it happens to be the way that this Try Hack Me room is set up to do it as well. But OpenVAS is a really, really cool solution. I quite like it. I think the reporting could be a little cleaner, but that's kind of how that goes with open source tools. Yeah, so we're going to give OpenVAS a shot, but then we are also going to take a look at the new player in the arena, and that is Nuclei. Should probably look at the actual website, not the GitHub page for this. Nuclei is really, really cool. Also, an open source vulnerability scanner. And it is command line based and it is built on YAML. It's written in Go. It's built on YAML templates for scans. And so anyone, including you, can write your own template to look for specific vulnerabilities or improve ones that are pre-existing. I think this is really, really exciting because very often, as much as I love Nexpos, for example, their tests are not perfect. Nobody's are. And very often you'll run into a situation where the tests that come from your enterprise tool have false positives, and there's nothing you can do about it. And even if you know why it's a false positive, right, you can take a look at the results of the test and say, oh, they are scanning for something else. They're not quite getting to exactly what the problem is, and I know how to do it. Even if that's true, you won't have access under the hood to make those changes. This is like an old hobby horse of mine, but when you talk about enterprise solutions, right, you are giving up control in in favor of support. Okay? And I always ask folks to really consider how valuable that support is. Now, sometimes it's super valuable, right? Sometimes it really is. But if enterprise support isn't really doing it for you, isn't really giving you what you need out of it, and you can't control a tool, the question you have to ask then is, how valuable is that support, and would my money be better spent investing in my employees so that they know how to maintain a tool themselves and then use an open source solution? Organizations hate that from a risk standpoint. They hate having to invest in people, honestly. You know, indispensable human capital is not something that enterprises tend to enjoy as a concept, but also they don't like the idea that there's no support. Even if the support would be in-house, they don't like the idea that there's no escalation point. It's a fight I've been fighting for my entire career. Okay, so we've got nuclei here, and we're going to play with that in the same room once we do the OpenVAS stuff. I'm pretty excited about nuclei. All right, so let's get this going. So we're going to run some scans against. I believe they're going to be using DVWA as our target here. Take a look at our architecture, and this is pretty common. The way that this is set up, that there's a web interface to your scanner. The scanner itself may be on the same machine that you're using the management console from, or it could be elsewhere. So Nexpos, for example, the way that Nexpos works, and I'm certain that Nessus works the same way, is you can have a management server, right? But then you can have satellite scanning engines that are placed strategically throughout your environment. And if you're talking about a segmented network environment, that's super important, right? Because you're going to want the ability to scan everywhere in your environment, but you don't want one asset to be able to go everywhere, right? That's a really dangerous attack surface then. So what you have is controlled access to those satellite scan engines that can then phone home with their report data. Yep. Tenable.io or Tenable.sc are the management portals, and Nessus is the scan engine. Exactly. All right. So this is the OpenVAS installation section, and honestly, you can install it if you want, but we're going to use Docker. I have sudo docker image. So I have the OpenVAS Docker. I just installed Docker on this Kali box. So we've got the OpenVAS image ready to go, and it's pretty much gonna be just sudo docker container run. By the way, whenever you see these Docker run, that is an older version of the Docker syntax. The proper syntax for the modern CLI is Docker and then the resource type. It is coming in line with Kubernetes, basically, is why they did that. But Docker container rather than image, right? Doing stuff with images. So Docker container and then run. Docker container run, do it demonized, and then we'll port. I don't like doing 443 straight, so we'll do 8443. to destination 443, and we'll give it a name, OpenVaz, and I'll explain OpenVaz. Okay, we got that little hash. That means that sudo docker container ls is running. Awesome. We'll give it a few minutes to start up. I think it takes a little bit of time. And then let's go visit. Awesome. All right, we're up and running. Admin, you can set the passwords differently if you want from the command line when you start this thing up, or you can modify the Docker file to your heart's content. But we are in. So we have started OpenVaz, or Greenbone as the interface is called. You can see we've got dashboard. Let me zoom this in just a little bit, make it a little bit easier. Found the first phone. Yeah, I should mention that you know, not to start a fight, but is it sudo as in do or do? Okay, so as a Linux Foundation certified security system administrator, I'm going to tell you that it's sudo. That's the proper way because it's super user do. Now, for the longest time, I set it sudo, and then when I heard the explanation for why it's that way, I was like, fine. And then like I couldn't help myself, I switched it around. That's why. But now I have a problem because then when I try to go say the word sudo, like false, I accidentally switch it to saying sudo, so I don't know. It doesn't matter. You sudo you. That's what I say. Yep. We are using GVM for now, although I want to also do this with nuclei. And also good to see you, Gingerroot. Yeah, so I was going to point out that if you don't secure your security tools, they can be a really scary attack surface. And you want to make sure that that's locked down pretty seriously. I heard someone saying sudo like suede leather. That's upsetting. All right, so we're on our dashboard here, right? What's going to happen if you have this this dashboard run over time is you're going to see, you know, vulnerabilities over time. You're going to start seeing what's happened with your host topology. Let's go over to scans and go to our scan dashboard. Take your time. And we should probably fire up the scanning infrastructure, or the target, because we're going to fire up DVWA here. So we'll start that up. Okay, we have installed OpenVaz. We're good there. Let's run to the initial configuration. Scans, tasks, and click on the purple magic wand icon. Yeah. So if we go to scans, dashboard is, you know, your overview of the scans that have taken place, but your tasks are your individual scan tasks. Look at this nice pop-up. If you would like to start your first vulnerability scan, the scan wizard can help you do so with just one click. Okay, thank you. I love that this UI has not changed for like a decade. So, and I love that, look at all these buttons that are in opposite sides of the interface. Absolutely perfect human-computer interface design. Good job. But yeah, so you can go to the task wizard and it will help you set things up. And look at this clip art from Windows 3.1. So immediately scan an IP address. I am not going to be scanning 172.17.0.1, which is the Docker gateway. Not gonna scan that. Instead, I should be scanning whatever this thing has been set up as, 10.10.11.81. Right? That's what the instructions are telling us to do? We recommend beginning a scan on 127.0.0.1. I don't want to do that. I want to go right here. And we're going to start the scan. Now, here's the thing. This is going to get started in default, which means it's going to run kind of its pre-selected set of tests. As it goes, we're going to take a look at our configurations. So we have targets, we have port lists, we have credentials. Probably worth mentioning, anyone trying out scanners, to only scan your own infrastructure. Really tempted to scan google.com, but don't. Yeah, okay, good call, Lisso. Just like every other tool for security purposes, you can only fire this stuff off in the range that you are authorized, right? So do not run this stuff against unauthorized targets. This stuff, definitely, if you were going against a non-owned asset, would constitute a violation in the US, a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, because this is an attack, right? It is testing for vulnerabilities. The only way it can do that is by running certain requests that would constitute an attack. Do not do this unless you are authorized. And honestly, even in an environment where you are authorized to do it, you want to be careful with your schedule, because if you're not careful and you have a sensitive system, and it comes down and you didn't let people know this was going to happen, you're in the hot seat. Yeah, Gingerroot, exactly. When you scan your own stuff, please tell your admins. Now, in a proper vulnerability management process, these things are going to get scheduled, but everybody, all the stakeholders, need to know what the schedule is, when to expect the scans, and you need to know when it's safe. So for example, I work in healthcare, and if I am scanning a patient-facing device and I bring it down, not only will I be in severe trouble, but like, I've caused real harm. I do not want to do that. So we have to be very, very careful to make sure that we are not testing. First of all, a lot of those devices are like isolated, but you always want to be careful to only scan when and what you are supposed to. And I'll even throw in the how, because a lot of times you're going to want to customize your tests such that you are maybe excluding sensitive port ranges, or limiting your throttling against certain assets. You got to know where your sensitive or high value assets are. Generally speaking, the security team is not and should not be responsible for your asset database, your asset inventory, but you have to have a good one and be able to reference it so that you know what you're hitting and what might happen. Let's go over to our scanned configs here just to see the kinds of things that we can do. So there's our discovery scan configuration. There's full and fast, host discovery. Right, so if we go to network discovery, let's take a look at our discovery scan config just to see what that entails. So it has, these are the families of network vulnerability tests, or NVTs. And you can see that of the 556, only one of them is active for this particular configuration. Dave Blazy works. We tested a scan against an X-ray machine. Ended up taking a picture with 500% exposure for the 3-minute period until the rad tech hit the emergency breaker. I didn't know that, but that's a cool story. I do know that there is a class of medical device, and I honestly don't know which kind. It escapes me at the moment, but there's a kind where there's a specific high number TCP port that it only ever expects to be receiving firmware updates on that port. And if you hit that port with any traffic, it'll be like, okay, firmware update time. And if you're just sending noise from like Nmap or something like that, it'll just destroy itself because you're sending data to that open high level port or high number port. So it's stuff like that you really got to be careful of, especially, Internet of Things or industrial control devices that were never intended for general work in a network like this. You really have to be careful. There are a bunch of fragile SCADA exactly. And then, yeah, precisely, printers. Printers definitely can exhibit some really fun behavior if you hammer them with a vulnerability scanner, for sure. And if we go into any of these families of network vulnerability tests, let's check out firewall, right? You can see that here are the 5 vulnerability tests that are enabled for this. And you can look at any one of these just to see what the test actually is. A lot of times it's going to be banner grabbing for the discovery stuff. And that has, some degree of false positives. If you wanted to make your own scan configuration, you can. Right? That's what this star button is about, new scan config, or you can import a scan config if you want. And if you wanted to go, down even further, here are your scanners if we had remote scanners. But yeah, if we created a new one here, we'll start with the empty static and fast just to make it really small. And then we'll show how to make new scan configs. So it's going to start with the families if you want to go kind of high level. And notice that there's a trend option here. And basically, as new vulnerability tests become available, as new ones are downloaded, because you can update them, either you can add new tests all the time or make the configuration static so that the family is what it is. Going after Cisco devices is a specifically fun one to do. Now, if I wanted to take a look at my Cisco, for example, if I wanted to go after switches, be very careful if you do that one, by the way. Network engineers have some opinions about what happens when you go after their management interfaces for Cisco switches, or any switches really. But yeah, you can do some real fun stuff if you aren't careful with your network equipment. But if I click on actions here, I'll be able to see my individual tests in that family. And there's a lot of them. So if you don't know what you're looking for, you may be better off specifically going for the whole family, or maybe using a pre-made configuration. All right, let's take a look at our scan here, our scan task, and see how it's doing. 78%. No. Right. Full and fast was our default scan config. Nothing done yet, though. Other stuff that we have in here. Let's go to schedules. So you can, of course, schedule scans to run. If this were running this in a Docker container, because it's kind of a one-off, but generally speaking, what you would do is you'd set this up in a proper server environment. You'd maintain this thing, right? It would be an owned asset, maybe by the security team, that you would have to, feed and care for. Tony Petroni, thank you so much for the follow. And of course, as usual, we've got this little star button up here that says new schedule. It's super hard to see if you're not used to looking for it. And then you can set up your schedule here. Duration is interesting. This is something that I think new vulnerability management folks will sometimes forget. you will want to set a max duration for your scans, because very often these things can get stuck on certain ports, or they're trying to get data and they can't. If you don't set a max duration on a scan, it can run in the background and you won't know it. Definitely set a max duration, and there's a little bit of art and science to that as well in your environment, figuring out, you know, how long generally a scan should take to get all your assets, and then, you know, what the max value of that is that you can afford to have it run. And then setting up a dynamic schedule so that you stagger what you're scanning when can be really helpful for you as well. I hate scheduling, by the way, just as an aside. Important to follow up on scans that run longer than expected to find out what went wrong. Absolutely. And also ones that finish too quickly. Yeah. Ones that went long, something got caught, and if you didn't expect it, that could be really interesting. And the ones that finish too quickly, am I not able to see the asset anymore? Did the firewall team block my access? There's a lot of questions to ask. Really good point, Lasso. What else we got? CVSS calculator, that's cool. I don't know that that's like better than the actual CVSS calculator. And is this 2 or 3? It doesn't tell you. All right, whatever. Okay, SecInfo NVTs. So this is, I think, where we can actually review our individual tests. So if we wanted to look for example, our WordPress vulnerabilities that it can find, here's one right here. So we can click on this and actually understand what the test is, what it's doing. And then this is the kind of thing that you're going to report on, right? So you'll get the summary, the impact, and then the most important for your report, the solution. What does the owner have to do to clear this? Now, it is my experience that folks, if the solution isn't clear, they will not go to the references. They will ask you for more details, or they'll ask the security team for more details about what they have to do, which is understandable. They're busy too. And so we haven't gotten there yet, but I will say that when you are reporting vulnerabilities, I think that it's a pretty good idea. Don't just let the report auto-generate and fire it off, right? If you have it set to do that on a schedule, like, that's cool. But I strongly believe that you are kind of on the hook for knowing what your tool is going to be telling people to do. So if you don't know what this means, okay, cool. Now you're going to have to find out, because someone is going to ask you. And I don't know is kind of a bad answer. An okay answer is, I don't know yet, but let's find out together. That's a great answer, because now you're engaging with the owner and they'll learn something, you'll learn something, they'll feel good about the interaction because you helped them. That's a great answer. But I don't know, end of sentence, that's no good. Yeah, or owners will say no solution, nothing to be done. Yeah, you want to make sure that stuff like that is nipped in the bud. But one important thing to note about that is that when you're reporting vulnerabilities, you got to report the stuff that matters and not the junk. A lot of times these scanners will have kind of everything and the kitchen sink in the report, and it's important to filter that down a little bit. There is stuff on here that will get reported on that honestly won't matter. It won't matter, right? There's stuff that will, but if you overwhelm the owner with having to remediate everything on the report just raw, then it's going to be too much. Like, if you give people too many things to do, they'll do nothing, right? So pick your battles is I think another way of saying this. And in fact, if we go to our report formats, there should be a way to configure our reports. condense the findings. If you have 40 something Apache Tomcat findings, it can all be fixed by updating the same server. Give the server team one task. So, Gingerroot, I agree with you. However, that is, I think, a real security way of thinking about it. And this has been my experience. We have, so Nexpose actually gives you, an Insight gives you both an asset first view and a remediation task first view, right? So you can look at things like what's the thing that I can do, the one thing I can do as an asset owner that will maximally reduce my risk score across the assets that I'm responsible for. And then it'll say, okay, go update Tomcat on X number of assets, right? Or go update Java because it's always Java. Or update Acrobat, right? Because it's always Acrobat. What I have found to be the case, and as a former systems administrator, I also kind of think this way. I don't think in remediation task first. I think in asset first. I will think, okay, what are my scary assets and what are my high value assets? What do I need to address in that regard? And then I'll think about what I have to do. That is, to your point, actually a way less efficient way of thinking about it. But that is the way that I tend to think about it. And it's hard to get out of that pattern and think remediation task first. Lone Johnny asks, what's the risk? That's a good question to ask. But if you're also asking, like, what is the risk score that I mentioned? Yeah, let me see if I can find that. Because Nexpose has this weird... Is this it? They have, so other tools will do this too. Yeah, that's one of the top questions people will ask. What's the risk? Yeah, you got to explain the impact. Risk is a tricky term too because it has a formal definition. People who are looking to take your CISSP, listen up. So, a vulnerability is a flaw in a system that can be exploited. That's a vulnerability. A threat is an entity that may attack or exploit said vulnerability to cause harm. A risk is the exposure to a threat via vulnerabilities. Those are the three, like, if you want to talk about those terms, vulnerability, risk, and threat, that's how you kind of draw that triangle. And understand, so when you talk about a risk assessment, you're talking about what is my exposure, what is the probability that this thing is going to get attacked, what will happen, what's the impact if it does get attacked. That's what risk is all about. As opposed to the threat, which is, what are my attackers, what does my threat model look like, where are my attacks going to come from, who is going to be going after these vulnerabilities, right? Is this it? There is, yeah, Tenable has a vulnerability priority rating and asset criticality score, which get multiplied together to overall risk. Yeah, Rapid7 does something similar. I'm trying to find it. They have like a PDF that has like a math equation on it, but writ large, you'll get this, for any given vulnerability, you will get the CVSS version 2, the CVSS version 3, and the, whatever your custom risk calculation is, which tends to involve some extra fun math, including a temporal component. So the same vulnerability will become riskier over time, right? As it gets older and more people may have come up with a proof of concept or an exploit for it, then it gets riskier. I also know that Rapid7 will include whether the vulnerability is in a known malware kit, and if it has a Metasploit module. Those two also are factored into, literally factors, in the equation to produce your risk score. Let's look at our PDF here. Can we customize it? Report, no. Can I make a new report? I can make a new report. Ugh, just from an XML file. Bummer. Okay, let's go back to our task, see if this thing is done. 96%. But yeah, when you maybe can we customize the CSV report? No. Oh, but can I clone it? I love that the clone button is a sheep. Flippo94, thank you so much for the follow. Okay, so if we edit the report, PDF clone, we just change the name. There's nothing that we can actually customize here. I'm going to delete this because I don't need the PDF clone. Let's go to alerts. So an alert is an automated task, right? So event, what happened? The task run / change to done. Condition always. Then what do? We're going to either email stuff, we're going to send it someplace, we can automate, we can put it in a file share. All sorts of cool stuff that we can do here. And then we send out the information. So this is how you would automate some of that stuff. Tenable factor and threat intelligence about whether it is likely to be exploited. Also some machine learning magic, which predicts whether it might be exploited based on similarity to previously exploited vulns. That is cool. But I will say this, that the more magic the risk number is, the harder it is then to explain to owners, like, why is the risk this when the CVSS is this? When there's a discrepancy between them, it can be difficult to explain to your constituents. Come on with this scan. This stream is now indistinguishable from my workday. Just waiting for a scan to finish. How was everybody's week? Tell me something good that happened to you this week. It's so dry here. I'm sorry I keep drinking both coffee and water. Now, has it discovered any hosts for us yet? It probably won't until we add, until the scan is finished, but we can also manually add hosts. So if we do that, we'll create an asset record here. But discovery scans should also produce these for us, right? And so, again, your vulnerability scanner is not going to... It shouldn't ever be the authoritative asset inventory, but very often it will find things for you that maybe if the asset inventory isn't well updated, that you may find elsewhere. Grinding out the OSCP labs. That's cool. Are we scanning a range of IPs? So we're actually just scanning the one. When we set up the task, we set it up with just a single host with the quick wizard. But if we were to do a new task like so, right, we would have to create a set of targets. And this is actually something we haven't done yet. And you can see there's a create a new target. We can also do that manually from assets, configuration, targets. If you want to set up targets, I think this is what Nexpose would consider a scan site, basically. Collections of assets for scans. So if I wanted to create a new target, I could say like... yeah, so we haven't built it yet. When we built out our full test lab that I'm hoping to deploy in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have an isolation lab subnet, right? And so the manual here should be, can I give it a CIDR? n.1.99.0/24. reverse lookup only, port list, right? So if we want to give it all TCP and Nmap top 1000, right? Or all TCP, we do OpenVAS default. If we're going to do everything, can you scan things with a PEM file? Duct tape, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Say more about scan things with a PEM file. And then, of course, if we want to authenticate so that we can get actual OS information, we can provide SSH or SMB authentication. So that would be for Windows devices. And SNMP if we're doing that. Okay, so you can see that we've created this target here. If we wanted to hit the isolation lab, we want to scan across the entire thing. That's how we do that. Hey, hacker, this is vulnerability management, and and vulnerability assessment with starting with the Greenbone Vulnerability Manager or OpenVAS. Oh, instead of username password. Ah, I see what you're saying. So let's go to credentials and talk about that because that's a good point. Can you do it with like an SSH key or something like that? The answer is yes. So there's client certificate and there's username SSH key. So, you were able to do Attack IQ courses. That's neat. I am unfamiliar with Attack IQ. What's up with that? Oh, cool. Real-time, data-driven visibility into the effectiveness of your security program. This is neat. What makes them good? You're killing me, Smalls. Why is this stalling at 98%? Now, I could kill it if I wanted to. I don't want to, but this is a long scan for a single host. History subject link Pathfinder attack purple teaming. Nice. I'm always on the lookout for more good labs. I haven't. So I was talking about this on the Guar stream the other night. I have to say, as much as I love Try Hack Me, I keep encountering unmaintained rooms in Try Hack Me that really need some quality control. And like on Tuesday, right, where we ran into a situation where the buffer overflow room actually had like an incorrect definition of something. It's all community generated content, and I appreciate that. I respect that. But when you have a lot of community generated content, what needs to happen is you need somebody to be reviewing them, right? There has to be some level of quality control. Otherwise, your reputation is now hinging entirely on community content, which is a pretty tricky proposition. And maybe Try Hack Me is already doing that, and I don't know about it. But it seems like there's something getting missed. Okay, so we're doing the thing we were supposed to do here. Oh, it finished. Fantastic. All right, let's go to our tasks. What do we have here? Medium. It's funny, you would expect it to have a little bit more than mediums. But some of that may be because of the way that the DVWA was set up. So, for example, the thing with DVWA, right, is what is admin password? It's the default. The admin. Okay, it is admin password. I just mistyped password. Right, so if we go to DVWA security, it's set to impossible, right? If I set it to low, right, we'd actually find a whole lot more stuff. But what did we find? Let's go to reports. It says reports 1. What you got for me? It found missing HTTP only cookie attribute. Okay, SSH weak encryption algorithms, TCP timestamps, SSH weak MAC algorithms supported. How much do you think ops guys should know about this stuff? In my experience, they treat security as a black box that emails and PDFs occasionally come out. Well, as a security professional, obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased toward the they should know more about it. But no, in all seriousness, it is difficult. I think one of the things that makes security such a tough entry point in IT is that to do it well, there's such a broad knowledge base that you're going to require to be able to be conversant with people about these sorts of things. For example, my background as a web developer really made it a lot easier for me to understand web HTTP and web-based vulnerabilities, right? So when like this HTTP only cookie attribute, I know what's going on with that, but maybe somebody who's like a Windows engineer will have no idea what that means. Spy Sheldon, thank you for the follow. And in fact, when I started working in this area, the first thing that I had to do was just sit down with the Windows internals textbook and just read it cover to cover, because I had a lot to learn about how the Windows operating system worked, how security worked on it, and what kinds of things I needed to be concerned about. But so back to the question, like, how much do ops people need to know about it? I would say more than they do, generally. I think that it matters. But I also think that we have to be a little bit better about education and outreach. I think that that's probably the most important function of a security operations team that's involved in vulnerability management. If the ops team sees security as a black box that reports are just coming out of and just like annoying tasks come from, that is not entirely on them. That is also about how the security team is presenting themselves. If you present yourself as more than that, if you present yourself as a resource, if you are reaching out to these teams, if you want to be active partners engaged in the security of their assets, they are going to notice and they're going to respond differently. This gets back to what I was saying at the beginning of the stream, that every security problem is really a human problem. Yeah. Also, people should put some effort in learning, because you can easily cause disruption of a service if you just do things because it's more secure. That's absolutely right. Remember that there's no such thing as perfect security. You are always walking a tightrope between security and usability. You have to be. People have to be able to do their jobs. And by the way, remember that our job is about the confidentiality, integrity, availability triad. If you make things so locked down that nothing's available, you screwed up, because you actually you broke your InfoSec triad, right? So you have to be walking that tightrope. There is no perfect solution. Now, looking at some of these vulnerability findings here, there are a couple of things that I might do. So for example, TCP timestamps, it's a 2.6 low. What is this TCP timestamps finding all about? And therefore allows to compute the uptime. What is the impact? A side effect of this feature is that the uptime of the remote host can sometimes be computed. Chat, what do we think? Does this matter? I would say it absolutely does not matter. All it's doing is producing noise on the report. And depending on what your leadership, looks like, if they're saying like, well, what's with all these lows? Why do you have 300 lows? Then you are actually causing problems for the ops team by putting this stuff in the report. Give them what matters, because remember, these reports have different audiences. Yes, the ops team needs it to patch, but leadership is going to be seeing the results of these reports too. So you really have to be thinking about what it is you are sending up the flagpole. Because if you're sending a bunch of just nonsense, like who cares, low risk vulnerabilities into these reports, and by the way, the ones that are like the hardest to patch, then you're just making life miserable for people, not making the environment more secure. Sick in the mind, good to see you. So for something like this, what I might do is add an override, which we would call an exception, or in Nexpose. So active, no. Hosts, any. I'm making a global exception here. Or no, sorry, the override is active. Hosts, any. New severity, false positive. Task, any. We don't care about TCP timestamps. Or you would put something real in here, not just that. You'd say like, this vulnerability does not pose meaningful risk to the organization. If this was somehow exploited, you decided not to tell anyone. Also consider putting filters in the reports. Yeah. So that's the other thing, right? You don't want to mute stuff that actually could matter. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a good one that I had. Yeah, for sake of the mind, for this particular vulnerability, not a huge concern. But let me tell you another one that is. So, if you this is one that you'll get sometimes. If you scan an asset via IP address, okay, but it has an SSL certificate that is, or a TLS certificate that is either from it's self-signed or it's like Active Directory based, or it is a web asset that has an FQDN that is different. A lot of times you'll get this like really high severity warning that says that the X509CN does not match the target name. Okay, well, like, of course it doesn't, because you signed by the IP and the subject name doesn't match that. But does that, like, that's not real. That's a false positive because you scanned via an IP. But should you mute that report? Hell no, because you actually want to make sure that your certificates are in good shape. Uptime is important, Lone Johnny, but it's not a security vulnerability. Those are false positives only because the certificate is not trusted by the scanner. I'm not talking about a not trust. Sick in the mind. Different thing. I'm talking about a mismatch between the target and the certificate CN. Right, okay, so this is good. I wish you could just set it to like, log. I guess you could do that, but it's not a false positive really. If we can set it to log, that's good. All right, cool. So now if we go back to our reports, we should see, yeah. that the TCP timestamp is cleared. That's great news, right? Because now we're not messing with that. SSH weak MAC algorithms supported. That one I tend to keep. What GVM version is this? It's a good question. The Docker image is built weekly, so should be, yeah, 703. I tend to keep, I would keep any cryptographic vulnerabilities, even if they are low, keep them in there, because very often there's a policy component to this, that your organization may have data in transit policies that require certain levels of cryptography. So don't mess with those unless you know for sure that you don't care. But generally speaking, you should. Obviously, we've got clear text transmission of sensitive information by HTTP. Another thing is, this is a medium. I would actually up this one at this point. This is a medium. To be honest with you, I would kick this up. Nobody should be using HTTP in 2021, right? So if you want to make sure that this stops, ratchet it up. You are not beholden to the vulnerability ratings of the tool. You have discretion. You can change those. If you understand what you're doing and you understand what the actual risks and concerns are for your organization, you can change them. So for this one, right, clear text transmission of sensitive information, I would up this to whatever is a high or a severe, right? Because I don't want anybody writing web applications on port 80 in my house. Even if it's an internal web application, I don't want them doing it, because I want to start building a culture of the discipline of encryption. I want them to understand what goes into creating, even if it's a certificate from our own CA. I want them to learn how to do that if they haven't done it before. And if it's a public thing, of course it has to be TLS. You don't know how it determines sensitive information is sent to the web server. So, sick of the mind, in this case, I'm pretty sure what happened is they found a form with a post, and then they recognized that there was a post. Yeah. That was over HTTP. That's what it was. And it found a field name in the form with password. So you can look at the details here. So again, this override, we can set the new severity to, can I set to 7 and manually set it? Yeah, always, as I said, we'll do that for any and task any. And now we have produced a more meaningful report for our constituents. I don't like using the term customer, but this is our product, honestly, right? This is what we're producing for them. Now, this looks a little bit scarier, but that's good in this case, because we want to make sure that the developer, right, gets their stuff in order. Oh, here's another one that's a kicker. Now, we had the DVWA security set to impossible. If we reran this scan, right, now it's going to get all this stuff. In fact, let's do that. Let's run a new scan. Let me add time. Are we still good? Really? All right. Let's run a new scan on this thing. So if we go to our assets, let's try to do it a different way. Go to targets. And we'll make a new target. Did you save DVWA? I think I did. Yeah. Yeah, we're good. So we're going to make this a little bit faster. We're going to do top 1000 ports just because we know it's 22 and 80 on this thing. We're not going to give it any creds. And that is the thing to know, right? Your external asset configuration should be different from your internal asset configuration if you're scanning from the interwebs. Okay. So we have a new target. That's cool. And so let's go to our tasks. And I don't want to use the task wizard. I like doing new task. Okay. Targets. THM test. Schedule. We're going to run it once. What I like to call an ad hoc scan. Apply overrides. Yes. Oh, hey, Grom. I will check that out in just a second. A scanner open by its default. Scan config full and fast. Yep. Love it. Good, 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 good. Make it so. All right. So that's going to do its thing. Let's take a look at what Grom has for us here. When thinking about manually verifying findings to reduce false positives, how do you pick and choose with a large number of the results with a different... decent... Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. Quality of data? Quality of detection. Ah, right, of course. The thing about manually... How do you pick and choose with a large number of results? So... stick in the mind, you may not be able to do that. I work in an environment with 80,000 assets. You can't do all of them. You do have to have a process. For me, a lot of it goes back to your asset inventory. So you have to think about what the sensitivity of the asset is. Is it external? Is it internal? Is it high? You know, what's the value of it? What network segment is it in? All of those things go into the heuristic to really determine like what you have to triage first in terms of manually verifying. And of course, how severe is it? Now, if you can automate some of that, even if you do a manual verification, for example, there have been times where I have written custom code, right, to manually test for vulnerabilities across a large number of assets just to confirm that the thing is there across you know, our fleet. For example, when a new CVE comes out and there's a really good reliable test on it, like the Apache vulnerability a couple weeks ago, that would be a good one. If you want to manually verify if there was some reason to not trust the results, then you could maybe script that out. And that is a situation in which, you know, being able to script is pretty good. You group by volume too. If you have thousands of one type of volume, you can check those first and potentially mark them all as FP. Yeah. One of the things that's interesting very often is you'll have to be very careful because the results for even a specific vulnerability will differ from asset to asset. For example, let's say it's an OS level thing where it's like there's a misconfiguration in an Etsy config file or something, right? Like maybe the SSH user that you are authenticating to had the wrong permissions. Maybe it wasn't configured correctly. You're going to have to be sure about things like that. And that was the result. And that was the reason for the issue. There's a degree of certain... browsable directories, low priority risk for most. Sick in the mind. I do not agree. I do not think that's true. I think if I find directory indexing on a web application, I report on that every time. For one thing, it's a smell. It indicates to me that there may be other misconfigurations. Okay, so let's take a look at the spider bat thing. Defend the flag challenges. Oh, Vuln Scanner puts it at the bottom was my point. Does it? If I find that in Zap, that's at least a medium. Well, I mean medium versus high. So I think that's also about your process, because we require for a go live, for example, that you have to clear everything north of a low. So that's something to be aware of. That a lot of that is not just the tool, that's your scan, your policies. Again, it comes back to being a human issue, not a technical issue. They said that just did a quick bash script at ls directory listing recursively. PCI high trust. So, you know, it depends on your environment, but you know, we have my organization has, you know, PCI concerns, we have HIPAA concerns, and we use other standards as well. And a lot of these tools, not OpenVAS so much, but like Nexpose, and I know Nessus has this as well, will have policy scans that are really neat, where in addition to the vulnerability detection, you can run the scan against a set of like CIS or NIST or PCI policies, and that will also provide a nice policy report for you as well. Yeah, you want to work closely with your compliance team. All right, how's this thing doing? It's still new. All right, while this is going, oh, did I not hit start? Good God. There we go. That is a really kind of funny. You have to manually hit start if you don't do the wizard. Okay, well, while that's running, let's talk about nuclei a little bit. So if you want to get started with nuclei, what are you going to need to do? First, you're going to... Let's bring this back up in the chat here. Even if I have a high value scheduled, or if I have a scan that's scheduled, but if it's high value, I'll never just let it run without getting eyes on. I just can't. I don't trust it. So here's the thing about nuclei. It'll tell you that it's written in Go, and it'll tell you to use Go install. But if you go to the nuclei GitHub repository, they have pre-compiled binary releases for you, which you can also use, which is what I grabbed. I just grabbed this and then like copied it over into user local bin. Now, that's not all, because once I have nuclei installed, I also have to go get the nuclei templates, which is its own repo. And this is kind of all of the default templates that are available for scans. And these are kind of cool to check out too. So for example, if we take a look at vulnerabilities, we go into WordPress, for example, and it has these YAML files that have specific tests that it's going to run. So this is the shape of a nuclei template where you have the metadata here. Notice the tag. The tags are super important because a lot of them will also have like MITRE ATT&CK references, and you can use those tags to like run all tests against a specific tag or a specific like MITRE ATT&CK reference. Very similar to the way that Atomic Red Team works. And then what are we doing? Requests method get path base URL. Now this isn't just for HTTP. I should point out it does TCP and UDP stuff as well, but get for HTTP requests. Base URL, WP content, plugins, right? Where are we going? This is the request that we're making. And then we're matching on a word. And if the response matches, so this is the file, right? Minify.php. Oh man, I love this thing. So basically what you're giving it, I'm pretty sure, is a base 64 encoded file. Or something. It's minified in some way. And then it's getting deserialized or decoded. Yeah, maybe it is PHP deserialization. And then what you get is this Nisys file include test. And then if it's in there, in the body, then the test fails, passes, whatever you want to say. The vulnerability is detected. So as a framework, I really like Nuclei, especially for one-offs, right? If I want to specifically do, as we were talking about before, that manual testing, Nuclei is a great way to maybe automate some of that. If I have a specific test that I want to run, I can maybe take the data from my Nessus or Nexpose or OpenVAS scan and then fire off Nuclei at those same sets of targets, but again with a test that I know, like I can see, which is a problem that you have with the enterprise managed tools, that like you are kind of reliant on whatever their test is. You can actually like, you can sometimes go into the source if you have access to the machine and look at the test, but you can't really change it. %. Cool. Cool. All right, well, while that's happening, let's try to run Nuclei against this thing. Now we know that, let's go to our Nuclei templates just to see what we have. So what we might want to do is look for anything that has a PHP tag. Hopefully PHP is a tag. That's something that we might want to try. Now, a lot of these are very specific, like PHP my admin, which we don't think the DVWA has. File PHP, PHP scanner. So what do we have in misconfiguration? Unauthenticated. Tomcat scripts. So a lot of these are like super specific, right? And so what we may need to do is write a custom test if we wanted to absolutely verify. But if we wanted to, we could also, let's try this. So let's look at the Nuclei help. And there's a lot in here, but we can say tags, right? Or execute a subset of templates that contain the provided tags. So that's part of what we're going to do. And the general use case for nuclei is you give it the URL for a specific URL, or a list of URLs from a file, and then you give it a directory for templates. Now, you can say new templates only if you want, but we're pretty much going to point it to our templates folder, and then we are going to filter it with our tags option. Okay, notice that it's a single dash, BSD style, not double dash, and tell it to run PHP stuff. We'll see what happens. Nuclei. http:// Nope, I gotta go recopy the IP address. Is it really only been that long? That doesn't seem right to me. Yeah, it's not. So there's like a timer problem with TryHackMe too. It's like, that's definitely under an hour. Okay, so we're good. We're gonna go get this IP address, fire that off, give it our templates directory of scripts, nuclei templates, and then -t, we're gonna give it -tags, PHP. We got 15 templates that were loaded with the PHP tag. No results. So unfortunately, Nuclei doesn't have any templates that are useful for this out of the box. And this is kind of why Nuclei for me is not a first pass tool. Nuclei is, I think, better for validation or for super targeted testing. So for example, if I were testing a WordPress site, I would absolutely fire off all the WordPress stuff in Nuclei. I would also use WP Scan, but Nuclei stuff is cool too. And I would use that because it was a targeted product that I knew about. You know what I mean? As opposed to just kind of the general configuration of a server. That's what I think tools like OpenVAS and Nexpose and Nessus are better for. Seriously? I think I made it worse by lowering the security down, because now, you know, if you haven't played with DVWA, I love this thing. You know, now it's gonna find all this stuff. Gonna find all of that, right, and go to work. So yeah, it might take a minute. But let's see if we can make a Signalman said how much Nessus does. Bad job scanning Kubernetes clusters, pods, nodes. So I'm not super familiar with what Nessus has, but I have to say that, you know, Rapid7 actually does okay. It's just that it happens at a different point. Okay, like when you're talking about containerized stuff, it is not a dynamic scan the way that it is with a server. What happens in those cases? Did I close Nessus? What happens in those cases is that what you want to do is you want to scan the base image, right? Either from your repository or during the build process, and look for your version-based vulnerabilities there. That's generally how that works. There's also, if you want to talk about vulnerability management for containers, this one's for you, Duct Tape. JFrog has a bunch of offerings for this. Now they have Artifactory, which is kind of like their unified repository for resources, but they also have X-Ray. So I found Kube Hunter to be good for like default like misconfigurations, although the default configuration is not as crazy as it used to be for Kubernetes. But like this is really solid. JFrog's X-Ray, it ain't cheap, but it's really, really nice because it's going to scan on image build, and you can integrate it with your CI/CD pipeline. But in addition, Prisma Cloud also has options for this, right? If you want to go the Palo Alto route, right? You can actually, they have a DevSecOps option where they can actually build in that stuff as well. So let's, while this thing is taking its sweet time, why don't we try to build a nuclei template to find maybe cross-site scripting on that page that we were playing with. Let's go back to the XSS DOM. So let's try to build that out. And they actually have, Nuclei has a really solid templating guide. And this is kind of how it goes. So each template has a unique ID which is used during output writing to specify the template name for an output line. Yeah. So we're going to build out in our just our OpenVAS folder. We're going to do I think they're using, yeah, YAML, not YML. So we're going to build out this nuclei template. Okay. So ID git config, then comes this info block. Every time. Great. So, second in mind, if you're not scanning images directly, then the next thing that you would probably need to do is build out a vuln scanner pod in Kubernetes, right? So that you're accessing it the right way, as opposed to hammering it from the outside. I mean, you can do that, right? If you want to do an external test, but if you want to get in there and actually see everything that's going on, you want to build out a vuln scanner pod that has access to certain things. Okay, so we're gonna change this up. We're gonna change this to not git config, right? I don't know why I decided to make that all caps. Oh, because almost everything was all caps. Severity, we'll call it high. Description. It's actually reflected XSS, isn't it? For this one. Whatever. I mean, it's kind of both. It's both though, because it's reflected, but it's also, manipulating the DOM. But it is reflected because it's in a URL param, so make that reflected. Confirms reflected XSS on DBWA. Now, tags. PHP. XSS. And we'll give it a DBWA tag as well, just in case somebody cares about that. Now, we're going to change up the reference. Hey, chat, where should I get my DOM XSS reference or my reflected XSS reference? That's where I'd go, Gingerroot. Absolutely. I'd go OWASP top 10. Now, they've changed up the OWASP top 10. I don't know if everybody saw this, but they've changed up the way that these are classified. Rather than saying like cross-site scripting versus SQL injection, right? What they've done now is that they have basically combined all of them into this injection category, right? So here's injection in general. Cross-site scripting is part of it, with specific CWEs. But yeah, it's like, it's a little bit less clear now. Right, so we could actually go to the CWE here, improper neutralization of script-related HTML tags in a web page. I think that's pretty close to what we want here. I like the CWE 80, and I'm pretty sure if we wanted to cross-reference this, because it's a web thing against something, I would honestly check out Zap. Where's my Zap gang at? Zap 2.10? No. We gotta update this to 2.11. I'll do that later. It doesn't matter. The point is... God, it's not even in dark mode. Have I not run Zap in this? It seems impossible. What have I been doing? I want to look at my alerts. I don't want an alerts override file. Filters. Oh. Sorry, duh. I was being stupid. I'm just gonna go... Did it not even do it? It didn't go anywhere. Let me just visit a site real quick. This is a little bit of a backwards way to do it. Oh, I need to set up to go to the proxy. Good. What? Oh, wow. Man, I really haven't set up anything in this yet. Crazy. Okay. Let me run it in the built-in browser then, just so we can get this going. I don't feel like importing the cert right now. Firefox taking its sweet time. Okay, fine. We've got sites. That's what I wanted. I don't really care what site I have. What I care about is creating a new alert. Because the point is to look at the cross-site scripting CWEs. So you see that they're looking at this. They've got the web app sec reference here and the CWEMITRE.org reference. So they're using 79 for cross-site scripting. Okay, so I think either one of these would be fine. And this would be, let's use 79 as our reference here. Okay, we'll close out a zap. I'll fix all of this later. Okay, so that's our reference. Okay, now we actually have to write the test. Meanwhile, 1% still. Rough. Cuba, thank you so much for the follow. And Nelson, I don't know if I said thank you. Or Atlas Jen, I think I missed some follows, but thank you so much, everybody. All right, now that we have our info, now we have to go to our template detail. We're going to go to HTTP. So we're going to go requests. Ginger, thank you so much for the sub to Neon. Very generous. We're going to make a request section here. And we'll do method. It's a list, so we start with a dash, right? Method get, and then we're going to path, and let's go get our path from DVWA. And we'll do it this way. Script. Alert. Success. That's nice that it URL encoded it when I copied it. Oh, notice that it's, first of all, it's in quotes, so I should put it in quotes. And it's got a built-in variable. And of course that's right, because I don't know what the URL is going to be. Right, so base URL in handlebars. I'll allow redirects. Why does it think that's still a string? Oh, weird. Weird. Max dash. Why is it a dash? Whatever. All right, then. So these are the variables that we have access to: base URL, root URL, hostname, port, path, file, scheme. Okay, fine. But if we wanted to set headers, we can. We don't care about that. We're not sending post data, so we don't need body. Now, if I'm not logged in, this won't pass, right? So I might have to specify a cookie. Um, yeah, useful in cases where you want to maintain session between series of requests to complete the exploit scan. Now, I think this is where I ran into this problem before, where you need to give it a cookie, right? You need to give it a session. You say cookie reuse is true, but like, how do you set up authentication? Authenticated fuzzing. Aha. Simply makes a subsequent HTTP request to define requests, making sessions between each request and checking for string match. What if there's another easier way to do this? Configuration. Oh, okay. So we can give it custom headers. And I think that's really what we want to do here. Because we're going to give it the cookie header. Yeah. All right. So then the matchers, right? The matcher is how we this condition allows us to check for a condition between multiple points. So matchers type word, and then the word here would be like this. So matchers, right? That's inside of the specific request. Yes. So matchers, and then type would be word. Then quotes? No. And then words. Hey, the flat. And then we list it out. And here it's going to be that's what we're looking for. Now, is there a list of other kinds of matchers? Yes, there is. There's word, there's regex, there's size. And then we have to give it a part as well. I'm pretty sure. We're going to match on the body. It's going pretty well, Fleck. We're trying to use nuclei here. So let's try it out. That's going to be our base URL, right? Now I'm going to do it unauthenticated first. Nuclei. You here. And then template folder here. No valid templates were found. I can validate. So nuclei validate. What is happening? All templates validated successfully, but it didn't. Here we go. Unmarshal errors. Cannot unmarshal base URL into string. Cannot run nuclei. No, that's good, right? So it actually worked. We just had to give it the T. Okay, so our problem is with the... base URL. Couldn't unmarshal. That's interesting. So... let's go back up here. Yeah, I want to get this working. So what was the error? Unmarshal errors. Cannot unmarshal string base URL into string. I wonder if the URL encoding is messing with it. Let's give it not that, you know? Nope. What happens if I take out the quotes? This should definitely not work. Let me... did not, line 10, did not find expected key. Okay, so the problem here... all right, let's look at, see if we can do a simple, like, maybe stack overflow and not unmarshal. Not helpful. Oh. What if we just get rid of the base URL? Is that what we're supposed to do? But it told us... oh, wait a minute. I see what my mistake was. You guys see it? Path is supposed to be a list. Hashtag YAML problems. There it is. Okay, so now what we're going to do, now that this thing is working, we're going to run it against our I'm gonna crib from Winston Churchill here and say that YAML is the worst configuration management language ever designed, except for all the others. Okay, so the scan worked. We didn't find anything, but the scan worked. Now, the reason, of course, that we didn't find anything is because it wasn't able to log in. We got a 403 or a redirect to a login page. To fix that, we're going to give it our cookie, specifically PHP SID. Yep. So this time we're going to run it with HPHP cookie HPSS equals that. Dang it. Can I give it verbose? Send HTTP request to vulnerabilities XSSE default goals/options script alert XSS script no results found. Better luck next time. I have a set of rules I wrote in Python. They are nice and readable as a list of Python, but dumping it to YAML config file is a mess. Yeah, I understand that. Okay, let's give it something that absolutely should just match, right? It should be in here. Okay, that one caught. So that one did not. What do you think? Go back to the URL encoding? Wait, what? Now it's not? Now it's not URL encoding it? What? Why? If I copy the whole thing, it... Oh, maybe that's why. Yep, that's why. Okay. It's very funny. Alright, so same deal. We're back to our URL encoding. What? It doesn't like the URL encoding at all. If I put it in single quotes, will it do okay? Maybe the percent sign is messing with it. Does not like that at all. Perhaps I need raw get? Another way to create requests using raw requests comes with more flexibility and support of DSL helper functions like the following ones. Raw. Maybe. Raja, thank you so much for the follow. Let me just try something here. So I want to see what some of these look like. They are URL encoded. Matchers, type status 200, type word, words, part body, condition, and. So it is URL encoded here. So what did we do wrong? But I do see that it's single quotes. I don't know if that makes a difference, but I'll try this one more time. Is there a task you're supposed to do to add that tag link into nuclei's index? It shouldn't matter because I'm sick of the mind. I'm specifying that it runs from here. And don't forget that we got it to successfully run and detect when we gave it a bad URL and a bad word. Like the test is running, and that's not the problem. The problem is our did not find expected dash indicator. Oh my god. Okay, so now we sent it. We sent it with the right cookie, unless I'm getting the cookie header wrong. Yeah, so actually I don't even have to do that. Watch this. If I give it just like H1, if I give it an always positive, it detects, right? So our problem is with the word. Also, verbose, display templates loaded for scan. I'm getting verbose, but I don't actually want. So we can run it through a proxy, which is actually super cool. Just kidding, we are going to run through Zap. We're going to do it that way. All the stuff I didn't want to do, we're going to do. How's our scan going? Still 1%? Cool. Cool, cool, cool. It doesn't really matter at this point. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is set up my proxy here. It shouldn't matter for this, but I'll do it anyway. Because I should have done it, which is set up my SSL cert. Yeah, hold on a second. Of course you do, sick in the mind. That's okay. We don't judge you. Not all of us can afford a burp professional license. And this channel is for accessibility. Wait, nope. Authorities. Import. All. You. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that's working, right? Got my Zap. Okay, so we'll blow these off. But now, so the reason I want to do this is because I want to see with a request. That's my whole point here. All right, so we're going to fire this off, and then we're going to say dash proxy, which is // localhost 8080. Can't help but notice that it didn't actually send my cookie. Oh, nope, there it is. No, but that's a different SES ID, isn't it? 4PK. No, that's the same one. 7KK0. But it's redirected to login. Did I? So that's interesting. Single quotes at the end instead of double? What do you mean, Angel? I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that I'm getting redirected to login. Right? So look at this. What happens when I make the request? I get a 302. I don't get a 200. Which means I'm not actually getting where I'm supposed to be. And look, it's setting my cookie. That's not supposed to happen. When I do H1, I get a successful find. Yeah, that works. But of course it's going to work. It's going to work on the homepage because there's an H1. I think the issue... I still get it. Alright, I'll do it that way. We're going to get a 302 again. We'll get a detection. No results found. What? Is there literally not... There's no H1 on here? So it's getting redirected. Interesting. So through the proxy, it got redirected. If I do it without the proxy, right, it detects. So that's interesting. That's funny. Okay. So, no problem. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to relog into the DVWA application. Wobril, thank you for the sub to Angel. We're going to log in through the proxy. Oh, God! Why is Zap... Ugh! Fresh Zap without any of my configurations. Get that out of here. No HUD. What? Yeah, so... Alright. Give me my cookie, man. We're gonna get this working and we're gonna call it a day. But I want this working. Okay, so first of all, I want to see a detection. Okay, got a detection. Good. Now, let's look at our proxy. Ew. I have to... Oh, God. So I rebuilt my Kali box, and I have to put all my configurations for Brave back in... Or for Zap back in place. Like, ignoring Brave syncing and things like that. But... Okay, so this was... Awesome. So we got a 200 this time. The issue was weirdly we had like other headers I think we probably needed to set, but this seems to be doing the job now. Now, if I set my detection back, does it pass? Or does it, does it detect? What? Now, we got a 200. Now, let's see what's actually in there. So, in the body, here's the form, the script. Whoa. But like, can we confirm this works still? Oh, it didn't. That's correct. It was not on low. One more time. So this request right here. Okay, so this is actually how it works, right? So there's JavaScript that sets it up. So I think the problem is that it's JavaScript being rendered. It's JavaScript doing the XSS, not PHP, which means that Nuclei is not going to see it. Now, this is actually something I want to learn about, because Nuclei, if it's just doing like, if it can't render JavaScript pages, that's a massive shortcoming, right? So let's learn what it can do. Yeah, it is DOM XSS, right? It's not reflected, but just search for JavaScript. Headless requests. Okay. So, actions. Single piece of task for a Nuclei headless engine. Automation with browser with simple DSL. Headless browser engine can be fully customized and user actions can be scripted. So headless, we do navigate, right? Args, URL. Okay, so let's try it that way, because obviously it's a JavaScript issue. So we're going to do not requests, but actions. And then or is it just action? Can I see the full freaking example here? I don't like these piece by pieces. I like to see the full document, you know? Let me see if I can find one in the scripts, right? Great. Oh, cool. There's a DOM XSS. Great. Let's look at that. Okay, so first of all, it's got to be in a headless block, which they didn't make clear. All right, so now, and then there's a steps. Steps. Okay, and then we'll do, oops. Action. Navigate. Oh, actually... No, that's still good. Because, yeah. Oh, steps is a list. It's weird. Why is that true? Okay, so navigate, and then... we do args URL. Okay. And let's look at our template again. Ooh. Look at that. So the matchers now are part of the step, I think. We have to do like an action wait load, I think. Let's do that. And then, oops. That's in line with the step, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay, I think we got it. Nuclei T balance. Oh dear. Field actions not found in typed templates. Oh, wait a second. That's not right. We gotta get rid of this stuff. There we go. Yeah. I had that. That was when I was guessing before. Okay, so now... What? You just told me... Could not parse... Cannot create template executor. What happens if I just do it without the header? Is that the problem? No. What is happening? It validated, but then no? Oh, interesting. So look at this. First comes action, navigate. Then wait load. This is one of the hardest ones to read. Let me see if... That was the one I was just looking at. Okay, this is nice and short. Let's see. So, steps, args, URL. Interesting. So look at this. Steps. The first one is part of a list. It's like setting the arguments, I guess. And then args URL sets this here. Then we navigate. Then we wait load. This looks right to me, although it looked right before. action navigate is not a listed example. Why the hell not? Oh, because it's wait, what? I'm getting a bad feeling about this, and I don't want to. Like, field URL not found in engine type action. Okay, I think I see what's going on. So, action's out here. No, it's not. So args and args URL. Yeah. Then action navigate is URL is indented more, but I don't think that matters because it's indented underneath the args, right? So args has this object, right? But action here is at the same level as this navigate is. Oh, it is actually here. It should be here. CR orbital, thanks for hanging out. Then this action here is like a list after this. God, that's so weird. I mean, maybe it is like this. Line 14, did not find expected key. Action, navigate. Oh, and then here. But that worked? There's something else we don't know about headless. Nuclei does detect headless templates. Add. What? Oh, we have to run it with headless. Ahaha. Okay. Yeah, but the headless request worked. Let's see what this got from our proxy here. See, this one was getting redirected too. Now, what's the difference here between these two requests? Cookie. It's not sending the cookie. Oh, no, but we didn't, right? Security. Okay, so this one got a 3. No, this one got a 200. Oh, but. I feel like we're so close here. Now, Zap is seeing this. This one got a 404. But it's the login.css. I can't help but notice that the headers aren't getting set. All right. Friends, I got to get out of here. But I think we're going to keep working on this, and if I get this working, I'll put it in the Discord for anyone who's interested, because I think there's some real value here. But yeah, we're going to call it for today. We'll pick it up maybe next week. But for now, let's see. I don't know any of the other folks on the hack list who are streaming right now. But if you want to check out some other streamers and see what they're doing, go ahead and check those out. There are a lot of us. So I'll send you on your merry way today, since there's no one I know personally that I can vouch for that they've got some good stuff. But I recommend you check it out on your own. And until next time, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking, everybody.